Recently I discovered that I'm 1 centimetre taller than Hassan Piker. Left-wing commie causes cortisol spike as he brutally length-mogs Twitch chads Hassan Piker. Oh god. Length-mogs, tall leg-mogs? Fucking... I'm 31. I have a doctorate. I don't need to do this. So this sort of shit, this sort of way of talking was on my mind because recently I made the terrible mistake, just a terrible mistake, of watching an Adam Friedland interview.
What do you do for fun? What's...
Dude, I'm gonna be honest, I don't do anything.
It was specifically the Adam Friedland interview of the current protagonist of this Lookmaxing trend that some teenage boys are really getting into. It was something even my mum had heard of, completely brought up to me completely on her own, which I guess says something about its reach. Friedman was interviewing this guy called Clavicular. I don't know what that means. I don't know why it's that. But for anyone who's old and, or blessedly removed from whichever trend is being squeezed out of the sewers of the internet, Lookmaxing is a new thing, which emerged from the sort of incel, pickup artist, and far-right message boards.
Did it grow out of like incel and pua shit? Like, was that right? Yeah.
Men gather and rate each other on some supposedly objective measures about how attractive they are. They encourage each other to get surgeries from, nose jobs to breaking their legs to make themselves a little bit taller so they don't get length-mogged and cortisol spiked by internet communists. But which, as a side note, is also a joke that was made in South Park 20 years ago. So the notion that this is transferred into reality makes me feel bad. But this particular young man, Clavicular, has become very famous recently for streaming all day and every day on Kick and discussing how he uses, a litany of surgeries, hormone therapies, and meth to ascend, his words.
In terms of ascending your sexual market value, let's say you ascend to making even 7 figures a year.
Ascend his Lookmaxing potential and really optimize his sexual marketplace value, or SMV, which ironically has resulted in him looking like a sort of dime a dozen posho that you could find anywhere around Soho. He has, of course, also been filmed hanging around with noted Nazis, rapists and sex traffickers, which, yeah, that's unsurprising, I guess. But what really struck me about this whole interview is that this guy's constant performance of masculinity, whether it's like the way he dresses, the way he speaks, the way he sits, it's all totally undergirded by an absolute bleak hollowness.
Your dog looks, that's your best friend?
Is that what they say?
I don't know. Who's your best friend? This guy in the back?
Like, you look at him and he seems completely vacant. He seems completely hollow. He's asked about his music taste or his film taste or his friends and even his pet dog, and he seems totally unwilling to commit to any kind of emotional response to being asked about these questions. Imagine not being able to be excited about your dog because you're worried about how it comes across on the internet, on the Adam Friedland show. The only time he seemed even vaguely emotional about anything is when he's describing his clearly deep-seated, simmering hatred of women.
Right, and women are just outrageously hypergamous.
What does that mean?
It means that they're trying to date above their looks level.
And also when he's getting, extremely mad about the notion that he should live any part of his life off-stream and therefore unpaid.
Why fuck no, dude?
I would rather, the way I think about it is when I'm doing anything off camera that's an activity, I'm like, I could be streaming this getting paid right now.
You make dinner with your girl, you put on a girl show.
Stream it, bro.
You do face. No, I don't know. I actually like want a private life. And I had to learn that.
Dude, I want my fucking hourly.
It's like his entire life is the super intensified manifestation of Foucault's neoliberal subject. Someone for whom economic rationality has come to replace every single aspect of his daily life, but with one notable driving force: his hatred of women. And what made the experience of watching this interview extra bleak, and bleak is the watchword of it, is that I watched it immediately after watching an episode of Mad Men. This was a sort of harrowing 1-2 punch of watching the performance of a man desperately chasing validation that will never come through a sort of idealization of the handsome, wealthy, womanizing masculinity, never realizing that happiness isn't something that can be grasped through relentless, false social and economic claiming. And also watching Mad Men. So, as a 31-year-old guy, I don't really want to be talking about Lookmaxing and a kick streamer called Clavicular. But as a 31-year-old guy, I really do want to talk about Mad Men. So in this video, I'm going to compare these two performances, these two projections of masculinity, and unpick what the differences at play are. I want to talk about this emotionally stunted, hauntingly hollow man-child, not because I think he's the future dominant form of masculinity. I think most people, including most young men, probably think he's a massive loser. But I want to talk about how you can see elements of hegemonic masculinity performed through him, a kind of intensified neoliberal masculine ideal where everything is quantified and value is the highest ideal rather than humanity or connection. And I want to contrast him with the most Lookmaxed character in Mad Men, Pete Campbell. Okay. I do, of course, mean Roger Sterling. No, of course not Roger. Roger's of a class that he can drift through life with a kind of happiness that the real Lookmaxed ideal of masculinity, Don Draper, can only dream of. Now, obviously, Don Draper is a character, whereas Clavicular is nominally a real person. But I am really just gonna analyse the performance of the character of Clavicular through the one interview with Adam Friedland. This is partly for the sake of comparison between two performances, but it's also because I think if I have to watch anything more from this hollowed out shell of a human being, I might pluck my eyes out in defiance. It's so bleak. Also, at this point, I've only really reached up to the final season of Mad Men. I've not finished it yet, so naturally my comparison will be necessarily incomplete. And if anyone spoils anything from past the start of Season 7, I will hunt you down. I will hunt you down. I might finish it before this video comes out anyway. We'll see. So let's really just sit back, relax, and just digest the simple fact that masculinity will never make you happy.
To be the bad man, to be the sad man.
It took me a long time to watch Mad Men, and part of the reason why is because the popular projection of Don Draper as the platonic ideal of masculinity, with his handsomeness, his wealth, his charm, his womanizing, it escaped containment of the show and was being held up as a sort of ideal for sad men on the internet.
And finally, step 4. Look fantastic in a suit. Look fantastic in casual wear. Look fantastic in anything. Sound good. Smell good. Kiss good. Strut around with supreme confidence. Be uncannily successful at your job. Blow people away every time you say anything.
And I found out incredibly quickly after starting the show just how ironic this is. Fundamentally, Mad Men is a show exploring the theme that no matter how close you can get to the platonic ideal of masculinity, you will always and inevitably fail, and the process will shear you of connection and joy, leaving you the saddest you can possibly be. Every single episode of the show, I sit down and I think, can Don get any sadder in this episode? And then halfway through, that beautiful man will be staring through a window, forlorn, lost in the middle distance. Don Draper as a character is the embodiment of the futility of pursuing masculinity. The whole show, frankly, is a demonstration of how gender and patriarchy are a cage, whether that is all the obvious ways in which women are mistreated and objectified by those around them.
What am I supposed to say? I'm married.
Yes, I know. And I heard all about how confusing that can be. Maybe you need me to lay on your couch to clear that up for you again.
Or the more complex ways in which women like Betty Draper, Don's wife, are the participants and enforcers of patriarchy in their own ways.
How about you're going to help raise these children, not be one?
My father beat the hell out of me. All it did was make me fantasize about the day I could murder him.
Betty herself is a fascinating character. She's perpetually a child because that's what patriarchal society has constantly told her she needs to be. Dawn treats her like a child, and she treats herself like one too, which is reflected in the petty cruelties she doles out, especially to her children, who she insists Dawn should physically assault. This is motivated by jealousies, frustrations, and childishness that she can't break free from, while also willingly upholds. She's kind of a hollow, perpetual child obsessed with beauty because that's what she understands as giving her value. Maybe clavicular's more like Betty Draper. That's a topic for another video. For now, let's go back to Dawn. It's an obviously excellent bit of characterization that Don is an advertising exec. His job is to sell you a commodity by selling you a dream of a life. He even says as much.
Advertising is based on one thing: happiness.
Jaguar. At last, something beautiful you can truly own.
And he's well aware that his handsomeness, his Lookmaxing, enables him to more effectively sell that dream. Characters are constantly jealous of him because from the outside he is the very ideal that he is constantly selling. But much like the dreams he's selling, the commodities he's selling, Don's achievements of the masculine ideal is ultimately false. He is as much a failure as everyone else around him. More so in some respects. On a very basic level, Don's a fraud. His name isn't Don Draper, it's Dick Whitman. He was a poor farmer who went to Korea and stole his commanding officer's identity when he died and then basically lied his way into an ad agency. He's constantly getting eaten up by the fact that he is fundamentally a fraud. And he believes that no one in his world of high-class masculinity would truly accept him as himself if he ever let that slide out of him. And indeed, when he eventually confesses to Betty, his wife, she's repulsed by him. She couldn't love someone that wasn't from her world. And with that, Don's failure is complete. But instead of reevaluating what's driving him to grasp the gossamer of masculinity with both hands, instead of trying to find happiness beyond the quest to perform or project perfect masculinity, Don just makes the same mistakes over and over again. Instead of forming a relationship with a woman who fundamentally understands him and is willing to treat him as an equal, he marries his secretary and treats her like his own fantasy again and again.
Did you know she was a model? That's the kind of girl Dawn marries.
I don't like it.
There's no chance you're trying to embarrass me.
You're right. I'm sorry. It's so delicious.
Megan puts up with a lot of shit. But I think that's what makes Mad Men such a difficult watch. Every episode is marvellous and beautifully crafted and well acted, and on its own, each shot of that beautiful man staring into the middle distance, it's just, yeah. But you get the sense throughout that everything is going to end up badly. Failure is inherent in the show because failure is inherent in masculinity. Failing and punishing men for failing to be proper men is how patriarchy disciplines us into remaining its willing enforcers. It's not just power over women, but fear of failing in the eyes of other men. That's what drives Dawn, fear of failure. But perhaps the single best speech about this doesn't come from Dawn, but from the weaselly, whiny, inexplicably woke king, Pete Campbell.
He needed to feel that he knew something. That all this aging was worth something because he knew things young people didn't know yet. And then he realized everything he already had was not right either. And that his life with his family was some temporary bandage on a permanent wound.
But while Mad Men is bleak, the character of Don Draper is far from one note. He doesn't just hate women or use them as a tool. He does do that, but there are several women in the show that Don has deep, earnest connection with. In fact, Don only really has earnest connections with women, which is, of course, another aspect of patriarchy. He can never show his vulnerabilities to other men around him because that is weakness. But he craves his connection with his fake wife, the wife of the person he stole his identity from. He craves that connection. She's maybe the only character in the whole show who really fully knows him and accepts him despite his flaws. Her death is the biggest blow in his life, and he never is the same afterwards. He also loves and respects Joan, maybe more than any other of his colleagues in his ad agency. He values her as a colleague and as a professional, and he connects deeply with these people. And he also enjoys and engages with art and culture beyond just the performance of it. He loves crafting stories and narratives for his work. He craves that creativity as well. Masculinity colours everything in this character, but it's not everything that he contains. The character of Don Draper has an internal life beyond his sick drive to perfect being a man. But you know which character does not?
No one knows what it's like to be hated.
Clavicular is a 20-year-old so-called Looksmaxxer who got famous on Kick for, I guess, maxing his looks. I first heard of this guy when he was hanging around with notable sex traffickers, rapists, racists and misogynists. You know, fucking Nick Fuentes. What's your bald man? Your bald man with the kickboxer. Andrew Tate. Yes, him as well. But this interview with Adam Friedland is the only time I've ever really seen him speak, or frankly, the only time I've paid attention to him for more than the briefest of bleak seconds. And to be clear, I do not want to ever have to pay attention to this guy ever again. So I'm going to contrast the projection of the clavicular character during this interview against the characterization of Don Draper. The first thing I noted about this interview, once again, just how bleak it is. And the overall impression I got from this guy is that he was almost entirely hollow and deeply, deeply sad.
Have you ever been in love?
That's a tough question. You know, I
It's
don't know.
awesome. It's the ultimate. Honestly, it feels great. But,
Okay.
but it feels crazy. It feels like you're taking crazy pills sometimes. It's like, what are we even doing?
Mm-hmm.
Everything about him, from his posture to his nondescript fashion to the plastic surgeries, the meth use and hormone replacement to his inability to express any position or opinion about anything, even, his dog.
Your dog looks. That's your best friend.
That's bleak, man. That's bleak shit. This is a man who is entirely broken by the disciplinary effects of failing to perform masculinity. Unlike Don Draper, masculinity is everything in this guy's life. He has nothing else, and he's terrified to deviate from the idealized performances that have been drilled into him via the message boards that he frequented since he was 14 and locked into the internet during COVID lockdowns. Anything that could potentially set him apart in any way is dismissed as cringe or gesturing.
That's like the main distinction that needs to be made, because some people will gesture and genuinely think it's like game or the right approach.
Look, as a jester, as someone who likes to make people laugh, the notion that you would stop yourself from enjoying that wonderful feeling of making someone laugh, it's really sad to me. And just such a profound level. I love making people laugh. Despite clearly being a product of right-wing message boards and hanging around with noted Nazis, he frequently dismisses those who are more clearly political.
But if you go bald, you could go jacked. You could go Bruce Willis kind of.
No, that just makes you look like one of those cringe red pill jesters, I feel like.
I think they're jesters too.
The misogynistic Nazi politics, which is compatible with the clavicular performance, is always in the background but never deliberately stated, because to care about something like that might negatively impact his sexual market value. And that is the most important thing in his conscious mind. Clavicular's approach to this concept of SMV, I think, is extremely revealing.
So that's the goal at the end of the day, is to maximize SMV. And if you could do so through other areas, go for it.
Yeah, gesturing.
But at the end of the day, that's going to be incredibly difficult for someone to have like the status ascension I did, right? Where it makes it comparable.
Whereas economic security, being rich and being powerful is an important constitutive aspect of the kind of masculinity portrayed in Mad Men, and whilst being handsome and desirable is also a constant feature, the overarching economization of the language of desire into one of marketability is, I think, a form of masculinity peculiar to the neoliberal moment. In his lectures on biopolitics, Michel Foucault laid the foundations for an entire school of understanding of neoliberalism. For Foucault, neoliberalism is the expansion of the web of economic relations into every aspect of life. In the words of Bruff and Starnes, every aspect of the state and society is transformed in the name of the market. That is, that social life is only meaningfully understood through the market. And all of Clavicular's language around Lookmaxing is only legible through the market, and that kind of manifests in some interesting and bleak ways. The most obvious example of this is obviously talking about attractiveness as sexual market value, which reframes the ephemeral world of attraction into something rank and objectifiable on the marketplace.
You know, even something like the mid-face ratio tracks back to ancient Greece, but a lot of it is, you know, attractiveness surveys, scientists determining what is the most ideal measurement, right? And you take all these measurements and you come up with a total facial harmony score, and that kind of is able to be gauged on how attractive someone is. So the idea behind it is that there's no such thing as a 10.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
But for Clavicular, people apparently don't know how to do this ranking objectively, and crucially, women overrank themselves.
Back me up, Steven.
And that's another common cope, is people just don't know how to properly rate individuals' attractiveness, because they'll score women a lot higher because it's like, yeah,
they're hot.
Exactly, but when you actually know the objective measurements, it doesn't become about sexual attraction, it's about mathematics, and you're able to be a lot more analytical with, you know, rating people.
But what's sexy about math?
It's not about attraction, it's about maths. Misogynistic maths. And it's just so bleak, right? And this is immediately legible through the sort of Foucauldian notion of ideal neoliberal subjecthood. Someone who's an entrepreneur of the self, someone who is constantly trying to improve themselves, to ascend, to fit into an ideal market subject. In a slightly less extreme way, the proliferation of self-help books is part of this dynamic, and probably, you know, you can trace these trends back to the self-help stuff, as well as like the pickup artistry stuff, which all kind of falls out of similar dynamics. But Clavicular and Lookmaxing supercharges it. The Lookmaxers emphasize that everyone has the potential to ascend, and with hard work, money, and doing whatever it takes, whether that's breaking your legs or getting plastic surgery or injecting meth or testosterone or whichever cocktail of drugs you're on, that is the way to ascend.
Okay. So that's the first thing that I do is testosterone.
What is that, like a syringe or?
Yeah. The next thing is going to be a GLP-1 agonist. So I use something similar to Ozempic called retatrutide. So taking what's called a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor.
That is the way to increase your sexual market value. They are entrepreneurs of themselves and have turned their bodies and souls into commodities on an imagined marketplace. Some immediate impact to this are, of course, the objectification of attractiveness with standards within a full scientific framework.
Yeah.
So wait, correct me if I'm wrong, there's normie for guys,
right?
Low tier, mid tier, high tier normie.
Yes.
And then there's Chad, Turbo Chad, Giga Chad.
Chad Light Chad.
Chad Light.
Yeah.
What are you?
I don't rate myself.
We're like Giga, no?
For Clavicular, there's a solid scientific metric which objectifies attractiveness, allowing the ranking and objectification of SMV. And obviously this notion is 1, fake, and 2, indebted to eugenics and racism. A cursory glance at historical trends of attractiveness is enough to demonstrate that any objective standard is obviously bullshit. Never mind if you just, speak to women. You'll realise that attraction is not an objectifiable standard, but socially, historically, and personally contingent on a variety of factors, of which physical appearance is but one contingent factor among many. Something that he absolutely does not accept when he's told.
I don't know. It's just like they like it kind of a little bit if we're like a little ugly sometimes.
No.
I think yeah, bro.
And he talks about how there are other things that are important for attraction, which are, in his mind, status mogging and money mogging. But these are all basically parts of the same whole. And for him, physical attractiveness is the thing that undergirds and overturns these other aspects, and are apparently easier to do than, I don't know, just being nice, I guess. These guys don't seem to really understand the concept of being just nice to people and charismatic. Is it easier to break your legs than just learn how to talk to women? It is also notable that, on the point of eugenics and racism, the people he cites as being the ideal proportions of beauty are obviously white.
And you guys think that Matt Bonner is the hottest guy?
I said the highest in terms of the objective harmony ratios.
And on the sort of eugenics side, despite the entrepreneurial messaging, there exists within the language used by Clavicular the same kind of eugenicist thought which has pervaded neoliberalism for decades, particularly in IQ discourses.
Is your philosophy that like one can make themselves into a Chad if they want? No.
So genetics are going to play a huge role in everything and what's able to be accomplished, but anyone can improve their looks to a pretty significant degree if they're willing to do sort of whatever it takes and go with that mentality.
Yeah.
But obviously your base, where you start out, is going to determine a lot.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
you might Looksmax your entire life, do everything properly, but if you're someone who just does not have the genetic base to allow for you to be a Chad or anything, you might be a little disappointed.
Yeah.
He's clear that any entrepreneurship of the self is limited by underlying genetic factors, which limits the potential for high SMV. And this is a toxic mix of market scientism and eugenics, which has been powerful within neoliberal discourses for decades, but is made so obvious here. And so whether or not politics is cringe or gesturing or whatever, Clavicular is obviously engaging in white supremacy behind the apparent cold scientism of the market, a dynamic common to neoliberalism as a whole, in fact. One other bleak aspect of this hyper-neoliberalization of masculinity is the way in which Clavicular seems almost angry at the concept of living a life outside of the market.
What do you do for fun? Like, what's...
Dude, I'm going to be honest, I don't do anything besides stream.
Come on, bro. You gotta have fun sometimes. You gotta put a movie on with the boys and make jokes about it because it's a bad movie.
No.
Just try it out. Yo, where's the camera guy? Just please, just promise me you'll do that with him.
We can try.
Yeah, fuck no.
I noticed that the way that Clavicular speaks is very similar to the ways that crypto guys at my gym talk.
The ROI was not worth it anymore in terms of like ascending my SMB.
For those guys, trading crypto is a lifestyle. Everything is contingent on trading. And this is a similar manifestation of the masculinity of the Lookmaxers. Trading and wealth is bound together with masculinity, and extending that goal across your entire life is encouraged to more fully succeed at the hopeless task of being a real man. One of the bleakest parts of the whole interview is when Adam Friedland is essentially begging Clavicular to do anything that is outside of streaming.
Just please, just promise me you'll do that with him.
We can try.
Yeah, fuck no.
And in a rare moment where he displays the shadow of an eternal life, Clavicular seems to get actively angry that he should live any part of his life without getting paid.
Why fuck no, dude?
I would rather, the way I think about it is like when I'm doing anything off camera that's like an activity, I'm like, I could be streaming this getting paid right now.
Come on, dude. You can't just make, you gotta have you separate a little bit.
Well, think about it, right? There's literally people who do shit like mini golf and bowling and like go and hang out with go to dinner dates with girls. Off stream, they're not getting paid, right?
Yeah.
Like, dude, doesn't that fuck with you a little bit. Like there's people who actually do.
You think that that's what people are primarily doing, or you make dinner with your girl, you put on a girl show,
stream it, bro.
You do face. No, I don't know. I actually like want a private life, and I had to learn that.
Dude, I want my fucking hourly.
Life outside the market has been so devalued that he seems to see absolutely no value in earnestly engaging with other people or in living a life. He gets really angry about mini golf. Mini golf. At this point, I had my head in my hands.
There's literally people who do shit like mini golf and bowling.
It was so sad. Last time I played mini golf was with some friends in Glasgow. We had cocktails. It was really fun. I still remember it 10 years later because it was just a really nice day and doing something fun and silly with some friends. It holds more meaning than could ever be quantified in a marketplace, than it could ever be monetized. But the anger that came with even the thought of doing this for clavicular was so revealing and so sad. It's not just that it holds no interest for him. He's such a deeply plugged-in neoliberal subject that the concept made him actively angry. Foucault is spinning so hard in his grave he could power the fucking dynamo that powers the whole of Paris. Meaning is gone, connection is gone, humanity is gone, market value is all that remains. Bleak. And this gets all the more obviously bleak and revealing when Friedland basically outright asks Clavicular if the notion that he has high SMV is more important than actually having sex. And he really just says yes.
What? A girl should be like, wow, I was incredible today. Yeah.
Dude, it's about my time, right? It's not about...
Oh, so you make yourself bust really fast.
Yeah, bro. I'm not here to flatter anyone.
So then just jack off.
Yeah.
And in fact, the only other part in this interview in which he displays any actual emotion is when he reveals that his deep, simmering hatred for women.
What is true about women is they are hypergamous, they're dating above their looks level, and if they're not, if they're better looking than the guy, it can 99% of the time be attributed to either money or status.
Unlike Dawn and that projection of masculinity, he isn't looking for connection, he isn't looking for anything human, he wants to not engage with women at all.
Can I ask you a question? Is it like Lookmaxing a means of like avoiding, like it's called gesturing, but like just like a chatting, like or like flirting with girls? If you're like so hot, you don't have to talk to them.
Yeah, it certainly makes it easier to be a dumbass.
To not talk to girls.
Yep.
He only cares about his sexual market value as an abstract ranking of masculinity from other men. This is not even the performance of getting women that has previously characterized masculinity. It's the abstract performance of fictitious value on a fictitious marketplace. And it's illustrated quite starkly here.
Would you rather lose your hair or your dick? Because I would say dick, personally.
Yeah.
Fucking, I would look terrible without hair. I'd look sick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The hatred of women, so deeply embedded in this subculture, is so strong that they've used this intensified neoliberal subjectivity to remove women from the picture, almost as far as they can. And this is made really clear again in his shit joke about coming fast.
What's it like for a girl having sex with you?
Like 1 minute, and then you have to go to a clinic a few days later.
You hit it quick?
Yeah, bro, I gotta get back to work. I'm a busy guy,
You're such a legend, it's crazy.
Dude,
you're such a legend.
I knew a guy in uni who'd always make this joke, and it was always so clearly filling a well of rotten self-esteem. He tried to fight me once, but I didn't notice. Oh, Sandy. Wonder what you're doing. Still playing golf and loving Trump? Strange little man. But following this, he once again makes it clear that he doesn't actually care about sex and hates women basically for being involved. Women are nothing but indicators of masculine value, and masculine value is assessed by men. This is a safe space for emotionally stunted boys to hide their fear of rejection, their fear of failure to perform masculinity with women behind a series of phony objective measures, expensive surgeries, hormone replacement, and detached irony. The intensification of neoliberal subjectivity is acting in conjunction with the fundamental motivating fear of failing to perform masculinity and being rejected by women. And in that sense, Lookmaxing is nothing new, but it is an intensification of existing trends embedded in neoliberal articulations of patriarchy. It's the same project, just made more extreme.
But my dreams, they aren't as empty.
And I think this is where we really need to return to failure as a constitutive feature of both performances of masculinity, from Mad Men to Clavicular. In both cases, the role failure plays in disciplining men into performing their patriarchal functions almost gives us a clairvoyant look into the future. I've not yet seen the end of Mad Men, but I assume it will end badly. Probably with Don's suicide.
He's killing himself. I don't think they show it, but he's going to swim out until he can't swim back.
That may be a personal association for you, but that's not what this means.
I think it's interesting and notable that within the show, Don's ideal of masculinity is itself on the wane. He's aging, and his understanding of the world is aging with him. He's becoming a relic of a bygone age. He's failing, and he knows it. And this hangs to the narrative like a cursed shadow. And I don't know what's going to happen with the life of Clavicular. I kind of don't want to know, but it seems likely to me that despite his plans to stay famous forever, his life in the spotlight will probably be short-lived. Lookmaxing isn't going to become the hegemonic form of masculinity, it's just an intense edge of masculinity in this moment of reactionary neoliberalism, and that gives us insight into the core features of what is hegemonic. The obsession with self-improvement, leading to clear examples of body dysmorphia, entrepreneurialism, the racism and eugenics, the obsession with high-value living, all seem like constitutive aspects of modern hegemonic masculinity. But when performed by these emotionally stunted 20-year-olds, it just looks like loser shit. When Clavicular falls out of fame, he'll be left as an emotionally stunted man with what looks like a potential meth addiction and a simmering hatred for women and any human connection. His kayfabe battles with the various freaks of the Lookmaxing community already indicates that he'll likely not be famous within the year. Failure is the defining feature of masculinity, and this boy will fail, and it's all deeply bleak. So what should we get from all of this? I'm never keen on advocating a sort of positive, non-toxic masculinity because I don't really know what that means. But I think something worth talking about with men of all ages is the notion that no matter how hard you try to match the ideal of masculinity, whether that's through Lookmaxing or more traditional forms, you'll always fail. You can't win on this ground. Being a real man won't make you happy. What will make you happy is finding earnest and honest connection with people, including with women. That connection should not exclusively be sexual, but you need to let people know you intimately. Patriarchy stops us from forming intimate connections, whether by constructing other men as rivals or constructing women as objects to serve our masculine performances. To find earnest connection with people of all genders requires us to give up on those patriarchal dreams. You can't be happy by reaching the top of the masculine pyramid. You're just climbing to the top of a cliff.
And jumped off.
The only way to be happy is to work to shed patriarchy and its disciplinary subjectivity and find connection that is first and foremost human. And then you should become a communist. Alright, thanks for watching. If you like this video, then please remember to give it a like, subscribe, share, everything else that you need. My stuff is getting absolutely buried in the algorithm these days, so every single like and share and view and comment and all that really, really helps. If you like what I do and feel like you want to support more, you can sign up to our Patreon via the links below. $2 a month is the lowest level, and it goes up to $5, $10 and $15. You get various benefits from $2 and up. You get early access to videos, you get the scripts. $5 and up, get access to a Discord server. $10 and up, get their names read out in the credits. So yeah, if you like this video, this was less academic-y than normal. I needed to talk about both Mad Men, which has been such a great show. What a great show, by the way. I needed to talk about Mad Men and Clavicular, and because I watched that interview and it was just so... I walked in, my flatmate was watching it, and I was like, this is so bleak. This is so bleak. And yeah, I might do... I hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, I might do some more media analysis later on in the year. Gonna try and really hit YouTube because my view count has been smashed recently. But with that, let me read out the names of $10 and up patrons. Demo Squid, Dying of Thirst, Soval Hayes, Anita Anisby, Bon, Cameron Blakemore, Daniel Swing, Earl Grey T, Ellis Wren, FD Signifier, Hey Joe, Joshua Moldenhauer, Kate Marshall, Kim Crawley, Nina G. Public Relations, S, Tom Hutton, Unoriginal Name, Violet, Aga Ghost, Aaron, Alex, Cade Soiree, Christopher Poff, Daniel Hughes, Duncan Skinner, Esoteric Fictionalism, Eugene K, J. Fraser Cartwright, Jack, Jacob Quinn Schenker, Joel, Caspar Gunda Westberg Larson, Kieran Gore, Layum, Mason Colbert, Melanie Estes, Mark Gussie, Nelly Zacheva, Nels Abelgard, Paul Singleton, Via Westphal, Rachel Ann, Rachel Miskin, Robin, Tamash Kispeter, TB Skyen, Tim, Tinfoil Pancakes, Tom Price, Xander Corvus, and yeah, like I said, give it a like, give it a share, give it a subscribe, all that stuff, and I will see you next time. Love you, bye.